Welcome to the third edition of the 2017 OCFOA Plays of the Week. Many of the plays that are presented in this video were sent to us by CIF Rules Interpreter Steve Coover. Steve also supplied most of the comments that you see as text on the video. This presentation was approved by OCFOA Instructional Chairman Chad Wilson. I'm your host, Mark Andrews. So I ended last week's episode 2 of the Plays of the Week with an admonishment that we have to take back the sidelines. We're going to start enforcing Rule 983. And here's the kickoff from our first week of games, and you can see we have a problem right from the get-go. 4 coaches in the restricted area. And you can see the problem with this as the play develops. If this official turns up field, he's going to run smack dab into a coach. Now, fortunately, that doesn't happen. It almost happens. Watch the coach move back. At least he's smart enough to get out of the way of the official. Now, I'm not suggesting that you throw a flag on the kickoff, but at this point, you are making it very clear that that's their final warning, that they cannot be in the restricted area. Now, let's take a look at the very next play. 2 coaches in the restricted area. Let's take a look at the next one. 3 coaches in the restricted area. The next play. It's getting worse. The next play. You can see the play numbers up there. Now we've got 4 people in the restricted area. Obviously, this official is not enforcing the restricted area, and this is a problem that will persist throughout the game. So why do we want to enforce this rule? Number 1 is safety. Safety for us and safety for the coaches. Number 2, it inhibits our ability to officiate. I've watched this official go around coaches, which means his attention is taken away from the play and onto coaches in order to avoid hitting them. You can see the problem's getting worse. This is play 43. Every time I've watched a play where I could see this sideline, there have been multiple people in the restricted area. Let's take a look at the end of the game. So here we are on play 135. There's a total of 144 plays in this game. This is the last one I can see the sideline because they moved down towards the goal line for the last few plays. And again, we've got a problem. We still have a problem. And you know what? I'm not really ripping on this official. He's done an exemplary job during this game. Really strong officiating, good signals, everything's good. But he's not enforcing the restricted area. And the next crew that comes along is going to be admonished for being overly officious because the last crew didn't penalize him for being in the restricted area. We got to stop this. So how are we doing enforcing the restricted area? I took 4 random games, including one of my own, and found instances where the restricted zone was being violated. That's my game right there. Coach standing him over my right shoulder. I didn't get him. This is the result of not enforcing the restricted area. This is late in this game, and these coaches have been in the restricted area the entire game. Now we've got 7 players and coaches standing in the restricted area. This is a recipe for disaster. So here are a couple of plays that illustrate why we need to enforce the restricted zone. On this play, the official contacts the coach. Coach is actually injured on this play. Here's an example of an official getting hurt by a photographer standing in the restricted area down near the goal line. Now this is a 7-man game. The deep flank is 20 yards off the ball, and you can see the photographer standing there with arrows pointing at her. Now watch the contact here. He's backing up. It's a long play. Bam. Runs right into her camera. You can see her camera on the ground. Picked it up. The lens is still on the ground. Now, he threw a flag because he thought he'd run into somebody from the team. We picked that flag up. But the official's shoulder was injured on this play. Remember, we do not penalize the team for actions by spectators, photographers, etc. This is a game administration issue. We should get the game administrator involved and have these people moved back or removed. I know I've hammered this topic to death, but in closing, here's one last reason why we have to be on top of this. Do yourself a favor and look up Midwest Employee Casualty Company, English versus Harpole. Harpole is an official who ran into Coach English, and Coach English suffered a brain injury. Coach English knew that it was his fault that he was in the restricted area, but his insurance company went after Harpole and his crew. It took them 3 years of fighting this lawsuit. They ultimately won, but that's 3 years of depositions and sitting in court and worrying that you might lose everything. So let's move away from officiating the sideline and move to officiating action on the field. We're going to revisit the topic of hurdling. The definition of hurdling is found in Rule 2, Section 22. It states, hurdling is an attempt by a player to jump, hurdle, with one or both feet or knees foremost over an opponent who is contacting the ground with no part of his body except one or both feet. The prohibition against hurdling is found, like most personal fouls, in Rule 9-4-3. No player or non-player shall hurdle an opponent. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? But it's not. Let's look at the components of an illegal hurdle. First of all, one or both feet or knees have to be foremost. That means ahead of the runner's body over an opponent. What does that mean? It means that if the runner were to leap head first or with both feet directly underneath him, it would not qualify as a hurdle. It might still be a foul, but it's not a hurdle. Additionally, the opponent must have one or both feet in contact with the ground and no other part of his body in contact with the ground. That means if an opponent is lying prone on the ground or has left his feet diving for the runner, he cannot be hurdled. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Let's take a look at a play that's not hurdling. Watch the runner here. As he comes around to the right-hand side, he leaps over an opponent. Slow motion, we see that the opponent leaves his feet as he dives for the runner's legs. The runner does not have legs foremost over his body. Don't split hairs on that knee. He's just jumping straight up. That's not hurdling. Okay, here, let's take a look at this play. Quarterback's going to scramble to his right. He's going to leap over the defender with his leg foremost. Let's take a look at that in slow-mo. Now, what are we looking for? Two things. Does the defender have one or both feet in contact with the ground? Yes. His hand, nothing else is in contact, just his feet. Is the runner's leg foremost in front of his body, and is he leaping over the defender? The answer to both those questions is yes. That's a foul for hurdling. So now let's visit a topic that we have not discussed before. What protections do we provide to a quarterback who has gone into a feet-first slide? Let's take a look at the play and then discuss how to officiate this type of play. Keep an eye on the defensive player highlighted. He is the one that will be involved in the contact with the quarterback. As you can see, the quarterback slides just prior to the contact by the defensive player number 10. So we watch in slow motion, we'll see that 10 is attempting to make a tackle, recognizes the slide, and dives over the quarterback. Even though there's contact, this is not a personal foul. But what does constitute a personal foul for contact on a quarterback sliding feet first? Here's the guidance from Steve Coover regarding hits on a quarterback who is sliding. In high school, we do not have a rule regarding a quarterback giving himself up, but we do have a philosophy that protects runners of all sorts when it's obvious that they have given themselves up and are running out of bounds, or in this case, going to a slide. We've always taken that action into account when a runner gives himself up and make sure the opponent respects the act and does not punish the runner. In this play, the QB is giving himself up just as the defender makes a lunge at him. The QB is only protected in this case from the illegal hit, i.e. spearing. Because the quarterback changes levels by sliding, it's imperative that the defender not drop his head and make contact directly with his helmet into the QB in an attempt to punish. In this play, the linebacker does not make contact in an illegal manner because he either chooses to or accidentally missed. No foul on this play, but we must be alert for the potential for an illegal hit on a runner who has given himself up, whether at the sideline or by sliding. And then Steve goes on to make the point that the end of this run, where the ball would be spotted, is where he contacts the ground with a part of his body other than his hand or his foot. We do not end the run at the spot where he begins to slide, as in the NCAA and the NFL. Well, that ends another edition of the OCFOA Plays of the Week. I've got a lot more material, and I didn't even get to the discussion of hits on a defenseless receiver that I had originally planned to focus on for this episode. I'm trying to keep these episodes around 10 minutes, so look for another episode very soon. I apologize for the long discussion regarding sideline control, but it's an important topic and one that we seem to be consistently challenged by week after week. Thanks to all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. Please feel free to tell your fellow officials about these videos and feel free to use them as you see fit for your association's own instructional purposes. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the space below. As I mentioned, our next video will discuss defenseless receivers. If you haven't already seen it, please take a look at the 2016 video you see in the top left corner discussing defenseless receivers. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, simply click on my picture in the right-hand corner of the screen there. This is Mark Andrews signing off.